had one last idea before I took my chances, just trying to run and/or scream. There was a drugstore across from the liquor store. I told Simon I had to go buy a toothbrush or something that vaguely implied I might stay over. He eagerly agreed to this, but tried to follow me into the store. I told him you're not allowed to bring beer into a drugstore. I don't even know if that's true, but I doubt it's any kind of law. And luckily the drunk douchebag believed it and agreed to wait outside. Now my naive ass thought I could just wander around this drugstore for long enough that he would either get the hint or get sketched out or bored and leave, but no. I must have wandered around the store for about half an hour, and the guy was just standing there by the window. He didn't even have his phone out. Every time I checked if he was there, he was just staring through the window looking for me. I didn't feel like I had anybody I could call in the city to come help me. The cops here don't usually take things very seriously, and the store worker looked like they were mostly high school students, and I didn't want to drag them into this, so I didn't really feel like I had a lot of options. After being there for so long, I was surprised he didn't come in to see what was taking so long. I thought maybe I could lose him in the aisles and sneak out the store, but no hope. I ended up hovering around the tills and waited until a big group of friendly-looking people were paying. I followed them out of the store and immediately told Simon to leave me alone and go home. I said it firmly and loudly to imply that I would make a scene if need be. Simon looked at the people getting in their car who were now pausing to look at us before I nearly yelled at him, and then he just turned around and left. It was bizarrely anticlimactic, which I was very thankful for. I ran to the train station, which thankfully was in a different direction to his house from the store, and I never heard from him again. When I got home, his app profile had either blocked me or been deleted. Years after, I stopped compartmentalizing the whole thing. I wish I could have reported him or something. It bothers me if he tried it again with someone else, but made sure the fridge was stocked first. But at the time, I didn't think anyone would take me seriously. I was embarrassed of my choices and just wanted to move on from the whole thing. Plus, all I really had was a likely first fake name and a general idea of where the house was, which probably wasn't even his. So, Simon, I hope to never meet you again. I'm a 22-year-old guy living in one of Sydney's stranger neighborhoods. It's not exactly dangerous, but it does attract its fair share of late-night weirdos, if you get what I mean. Junkies, drifters, people who just generally seem off. You probably know places like it. Well, it never used to be a problem, but tonight, it scared the hell out of me, and you'll see why shortly. It was just before midnight. I'd stepped off the train and was on my usual 10-minute walk home. The air was quite chilly. You'd breathe and be able to see your own breath kinda chilly. And the streets were mostly empty, and there was an echo with every footstep of my shoe. I was walking quickly, focusing on the rhythm of my steps and the glow of the distant streetlights in the dark. When I noticed, I was catching up to someone ahead. He was wearing a huge bomber jacket, scuffed black boots, and was swaying side to side as he walked. His head jerked slightly with each step, and he was singing, something tuneless, muttering under his breath. I assumed he was just another local eccentric, probably drunk or high, and I tried to ignore him, wishing I hadn't forgotten my headphones. His voice grated on my nerves. We ended up walking side by side, not close enough to talk, but not far enough to feel comfortable. Just 2 meters of uneasy silence broken by his awful singing. Then, just ahead, a woman appeared. She stepped out from a side street. She appeared to be about my age, holding a stack of books to her chest. She looked a bit like a student. Jeans, hoodie, hair pulled back into a loose ponytail, and she nodded politely as she fell into place next to us. And then the singing stopped. The man turned his head towards her and in a raspy voice almost theatrically said, "Excuse me, why are you carrying a book about Bikram yoga?" His tone made my skin crawl. The girl was polite, saying she was studying to be an instructor. That's when the man smiled. "Oh, I'm a yoga instructor too." He didn't sound like someone who'd ever done yoga before in his life. I admit, perhaps looks can be deceiving, but even so. I slowed down just enough to stay near. I didn't want to talk to the guy. I hate confrontation, always have. But something about his tone and his body language and the way he was eyeing her up felt wrong. So I hovered nearby, pretending to be still, just to pass her by. Their conversation continued. His questions quickly went from vague to personal. Was she local? Did she live alone? Did she live with roommates? His voice never changed, but the words kept digging into her life, making her even more uncomfortable, and it made me nervous. I could see her tightening her arms around the books. Her pace quickened. She wanted to escape that conversation, but the man wasn't going to let her. And so did I. I was almost at my street. I could have disappeared into the safety of my home, but I looked back just to be sure. The man was now walking beside her, chatting softly, but in his left hand, the hand opposite her, there was a knife. A long one, not a pocket knife or something you carry for show. This thing gleamed under the streetlight. My stomach dropped. The guy looked at me, not surprised, not scared, but annoyed, like I was ruining his fun. He shook his head slowly, like he was telling me, "Walk away, this doesn't concern you." And then there were headlights across the street, parked halfway in the shadows. A dark blue car that I hadn't even noticed before. And now I saw a man in the driver's seat watching us. He didn't move, he didn't speak. He just stared, then raised one hand and slowly shook his head at me as well. That was the moment I realized. This wasn't just some random creep. This was coordinated. It was a setup. A trap for this young woman. My heart was hammering and I was unarmed, powerless. I was standing in the middle of something terrible about to happen and I had no clue what to do. Then instinct kicked in. A flash of some article I'd read years ago about what to do when facing a bear, which is look big and be loud. I screamed. I raised my arms and screamed like a maniac, like a cornered animal. I charged towards him, teeth bared, every muscle trembling. The guy jerked back, and the knife disappeared into his coat as he bolted across the road. The car door flung open and he dove in. The silence afterwards was unreal. The girl looked at me pale and shaking, and she didn't say anything at first. She just held her books tighter. We called the cops. She thanked me. But when they asked me to describe the guy or the car, I drew a blank. My brain had seized up in that moment of panic, and I couldn't remember anything very clearly. But what haunts me the most isn't really what happened, it's what almost happened. If I hadn't have forgotten my headphones that night, if I'd have not paid attention to their conversation, and if I hadn't have looked back one last time, I wouldn't have seen the knife. I wouldn't have seen the trap. She might have just been some other person who disappeared off the streets, never to be seen or heard from again. Human trafficking is a real thing, and I'm pretty sure I saved that young woman's life. This past weekend, my Uncle Simon, who's always been the class clown, got quiet and serious for the first time I've ever seen him. He came over excited to see my new Infante G37. But as we stood outside, popping the hood and pretending we knew what we were talking about, his usual laughter faded away, and his voice lowered to a whisper. That's when he told me something that happened to him in college, something he'd never told anyone before. He said he felt like he needed to warn me, especially now that I'm a young guy with a new car and out on my own. It felt very abrupt, but I listened all the same. Back when Simon was in college, he went to a small rural one in a town with about 10,000 people. It was mostly students and some locals. He lived off campus about 3 miles outside of town, past the bar district where he spent the nights drinking with friends. When it was time to go home, he thought walking would clear his head. But that night, there was something about the night that felt different. The road was a thin ribbon cutting through endless cornfields, stalks towering like ghostly sentinels on either side, and when the dark hit just right, he could almost swear that it was like someone moving in the fields. Of course it was just corn, but it was the illusion it gave. The cold air bit at his skin, and the wind whispered through the dry leaves. His footsteps crunched in the gravel, and every sharp noise was echoing in the stillness. Then a truck appeared, old and rusted. The driver was a man with a weathered face and sunken eyes pulled up beside him. He smiled wide and offered Simon a ride. He was drunk and tired. Part of him hesitated. He looked at the man and just felt something off, but at the same time he was drunk and exhausted. And in the end, his drunkenness won over his unease, and he climbed into the cab. At first, the ride seemed ordinary, but the truck didn't turn where Simon expected. Instead, it kept heading down a narrow country road deeper into the darkness. The man insisted he knew a shortcut, something he'd driven for 50 years. Simon's unease grew into a cold pit in his stomach. The moon disappeared behind thick clouds, and the truck headlights barely cut the thick shadows of the towering corn. The silence was suffocating, only broken by the occasional creak of the truck's aging suspension and the low hum of the engine. After several minutes, the truck slowed, turning onto a cracked gravel driveway lined with gnarled, twisted trees. At the end stood a barn, rotten and half collapsed, its roof sagging. Beside the barn was a rusted playground, the metal chains on the swings creaking softly in the wind. The whole sight twisted Simon's gut. The truck came to a stop. Simon tried to open the door, heart pounding in his ears. The lock was sawed halfway off, the jagged metal shards scraping against his fingers like cold knives. Panic surged as he realized what this man had planned for him. From behind the barn, a faint yellow light flickered coming from a small shed. The only other light was the pale moonlight struggling through the clouds, and the feeble glow of the truck's headlights. The man's eyes locked on Simon's. Simon fought with everything he had, terror pumping adrenaline through his veins. He threw punches, shoved with desperation, and somehow broke free, running blind through the shadowed cornfields, branches clawing at his face, the ground icy and unforgiving beneath his feet. He didn't stop until the lights of the main road appeared, flickering like salvation ahead. To this day, he never said what happened in the barn or the shed, what the man wanted, or what might have been waiting for him there. The story ends abruptly, his hands trembling and voice barely above a whisper. The lesson? Never accept rides from strangers, especially when the night is dark and the fields are endless, because you never know who might be more than willing to take you a bit further than you expect. I pushed for more details, but he was reluctant to give them. I don't know what happened to my Uncle Simon. All that I know is that he managed to get out of there alive. I was 19, flying alone from East Malaysia to university in the peninsula. It was a late flight, my favorite kind, as it was quiet, dark, and easy to disappear into. But that night there was an unfortunate delay, and instead of arriving at midnight, we wouldn't be getting there until 2 a.m. This was the only way to get to Peninsula, as we were separated by water. No big deal. I'd planned to crash at the airport until morning. My assigned seat was the middle one, but when I noticed the aisle was empty, I took it. That's when I realized the man at the window seat was watching me. I avoided eye contact, pretending to sleep. A few minutes in, I felt freezing cold. I cracked one eye open and saw him adjusting both his and the middle seat's air vents to blow directly onto me, but I stayed still. Later, when the meal came, he tapped my shoulder. I hate being touched and flinched. "You don't have food," the man said, smiling. "Here, take mine. I can't eat when someone next to me is hungry." I declined, but he insisted. He unwrapped the meal, pulled down my tray table, and handed it to me like a waiter. He didn't start eating his replacement until I was finished. He just watched me, grinning sickly. Then he moved to the middle seat. His name was Sam. He told me he worked in Peninsula Malaysia, asked my name and if I was single, what I was doing in the city. I answered briefly and politely. When I said I'd stay at the airport until sunrise, his tone changed. "No, that's dangerous. You can stay at my brother's condo, it's nearby. My sister-in-law's home. Don't worry, I'm a good guy." "No," I told him firmly, but he didn't stop smiling. When we landed, I tried to lose him in the crowd, but I had luggage. He kept pace, and without asking, held my hand like we were a couple. He walked beside me like we belonged together. Past airport staff, past passengers, no one stopped us. Near the toilets, I told him I needed to pee. He refused at first, saying his brother was waiting, but I insisted. He sighed and took my luggage from me. I didn't want to leave it, my laptop was inside, but I had no choice. I hid in the stall, heart pounding. I thought about running, but my phone battery was dead. Then I heard the bathroom door creak open. "Hey, you okay? You've been in there a while." He said my name, and I nearly screamed. I stepped out and smiled as if nothing was wrong. The airport, of course, at 2:30 a.m. was practically empty. I couldn't see any security around, no staff who weren't swamped with stranded passengers, and he walked me to a black pickup truck. His brother was behind the wheel, watching me silently in the mirror, the entire hour-long drive. They brought me to a condo, and Sam led me upstairs. "My sister-in-law's away, but don't worry, you'll be safe here." He gave me his room, locked the door behind me when he left, and I sat on the bed, too scared to move, contemplating my life choices and wondering how the hell I'd just ended up in some stranger's home, in somewhere I didn't know, far away from where I wanted to be. An hour later, there was a knock. "Are you awake? I just want to talk." Then I saw the doorknob slowly start to turn. It was locked. Then came the jingle of keys. I panicked and opened it a crack before he could get in, and he smiled like always. "Why did you lock the door?" "I'm tired, I want to sleep." He pushed the door open and stepped inside and locked it again behind him. He sat on the bed and told me to sit with him. I stood. When I tried to leave, he grabbed my wrists and I screamed. His brother banged on the door seconds later, demanding to know what was going on, and I unlocked it crying and told him to take me back, to just get me away. Thankfully, he did. At the university gate, my guard wouldn't let the truck in, so I walked the rest of the way in the dark, heart pounding. I got back to my dorm and realized I still had Sam's IC, his ID card. I'd asked for it earlier, hoping it might scare him into backing off, and he gave it to me, smiling the whole time. I'd clutched it the entire time without even realizing it. He called the next day, texted, said we should hang out again, that he'd come to campus to find me, but I blocked him. I dropped out a few weeks later for unrelated reasons and moved back home, but I still wonder, what if I hadn't screamed? What the hell his plans were for me? I mean, at a surface level, I'm pretty sure everyone knows what he wanted from me, right? But what if there was something darker underneath? I still don't want to contemplate it. Remember, if a situation seems shady, don't go for it. Don't try and be kind and polite and just go along with it. Especially if you're a woman. Make a scene, scream, show that you aren't into that situation. It can save your life, or at the very least, avoid very uncomfortable situations. Stay safe out there, friends. Last fall, my parents and I took a short trip to Portland, Oregon. We stayed at a luxury hotel downtown, one of those posh high-rise places with polished marble floors and very expensive-looking glass elevators. I had just turned 17, and it was a kind of independence test. My parents agreed to book me my own room for the first time, just a few doors down from theirs on the 8th floor. It felt safe. The first night went by uneventfully. I gorged on overpriced chocolate almonds from the minibar and watched some horror movie that, ironically, didn't scare me half as much as what happened next. The following morning we had breakfast at the hotel's sleek, open-air restaurant overlooking the street below. That's when I noticed him. An older man, maybe mid-60s, sitting 2 tables over. Just sipping his black coffee and staring, not blinking, not pretending to look away when I caught him. I told myself he probably just thought I looked like someone he used to know.